seen your face.
I've seen your face. It's almost like looking in the mirror. We've got Mr. Mike Bubalo.
Hey, how you doing?
So, you know, there's been some news. There's been some things happening in the world of Sony, and today we're going to be talking about it. So, what's new?
What's new? There's a lot new. Today we're at Condo 2024, and we just unveiled the new 85mm 1.4 GMASTER version 2. It's a mouthful. We'll just call it the 85 version 2 because everything about this lens is updated. Everything about this lens is new. It's been 8 years since we introduced the original 85, so it's time that we introduce the new 85. I mean, so much so that every time I see this guy, he asks me, "Where's the new 85? Where's the new 85?" I'm like, so now when I see him, I turn around and walk away.
Yeah.
So, but now you won't have to. We can just talk about the new 85, and you can shoot the new 85, and it's awesome.
See, now you're giving all the behind-the-scenes baseball here, but it is true. Like, this is a lens that I personally, as a portrait photographer, have been waiting for a very long time, and it's only because the GMASTER line has gotten so good in recent years. The 35 F1.4 GMASTER, the 24, I think, is really, at least from my memory, what started it all. So the 50, I mean, the 51.2 is unbelievable.
I'm a 1.4 guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know,
We'll
you and me
about
both.
that.
We're going to talk about that. We've got some, by the way, any questions that you all have, please leave it in the chat. I'm getting fed questions on my phone here that I'll be referring to every so often. We have a few questions, and one of those is coming up. But give us the brief overview of this lens. What's new? What's exciting? Because I got the opportunity to shoot with it. I had it for about a month, and
I just got it today.
I mean,
It's
you know,
fine.
it's you know, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. You know what I mean? But had the opportunity to shoot with it for a month. I did outdoor shoots. I did some studio stuff. So if you have questions from a user perspective, let me know in the comments. I'll make sure that I address any questions. All right, there's no off-topic questions here. Leave them in the chat. But with that being said, tell me because obviously from a technical perspective, this thing is like built from the ground up. Right?
It is. I mean, everything about it, even though it's a version 2, a lot of the times people look at version 2s and it's just like kind of a reworked version of it. But this is a completely new lens. Everything about it is completely new lens geometry, new focusing motor, new body build. Everything about it is new. But you can't talk about the new lens without really bringing up what GMASTER is all about. And what GMASTER is an idea that we came up with 8 years ago. We came out with 3 GMASTER lenses, and we wanted to make a statement about what we could do with lenses. We were already talking about, we made full frame mirrorless cameras at the time that, you know, the industry was mixed on in terms of reviews, but the image quality was spectacular. We were doing things that no one else was doing. And we knew where we were going with cameras, and we wanted to make a statement saying, we can make professional lenses, and we can make them honestly better than everybody else, do something just a little bit different. And that's what GMASTER is. That it's got 2 pillars, that they're extremely sharp, and not just sharp in the center, but extremely sharp to the edges, but they also have beautiful bokeh. And a lot of lenses, to be honest, at the time, and still to this day, are one or the other. You kind of have to make a choice. Do I want the beautiful background to be focused? Do I want beautiful bokeh, or do I want something that's extremely sharp? And GMASTER does both. And this does it better than any lens that I've ever seen. But on top of that, the original 85 was a great lens. It was designed for stills, and it wasn't the best movie lens, and it wasn't the best autofocusing lens when it came to really fast action. So one of the biggest updates for this lens is its 2 XD linear motors, being able to keep up to any type of action that you can throw at it. 120 frames per second, capturing fastest action possible, capturing that pupil of the eye for a professional athlete. So now this can be considered not just a portrait lens, but a sports lens, which is really incredible. And on top of all this, we made it 20% lighter, 13% smaller, and we also designed it for stills and for video. So again, everything about this lens is new. Sharpness, bokeh, autofocus, movie performance, smaller and lighter. That's it. It's a wrap. Best 85 ever. So.
You know what's really crazy to me? I feel like now this lens kind of makes me feel old because I was there for the original 85. Yeah.
Brooklyn or Manhattan? Whichever.
Yeah, it was Jersey technically,
So
but yeah, you know. So it was crazy to me because I remember when the original 85 1.4 came out with that other, you know, it was a trio of lenses that introduced this GMASTER series, and here we are now, 2024. We have 55
full frame lenses. And this is our 20th GMASTER lens. every single one of the lenses being, you know, at the time that they came out, the benchmark for the industry of what you can do. So GMASTER really fulfilled its promise in being the best lenses out there and doing something a little bit different.
So there was something that you said in there which I thought was very interesting, because the original 85 GMASTER, for its time, because I remember it, got the opportunity to shoot with it also early, and I was blown away. And I was used to using older technology, like older lenses, or sorry, not older lenses, but older camera body tech at the time. I was new to mirrorless.
It was like 7R2 at that time.
Yeah, it was 7R2. So I feel like the lens, when it came out, really compared and held up really well against the best glass of its time.
Yeah.
Now, GMASTER has kind of spread its wings. We're seeing just amazing stuff. And one of the things that you mentioned were those motors.
Yep.
So talk to me a little bit about the differences, because I talk about it all the time, but I feel like I'm just ringing on deaf ears, and you're the man when it comes to this stuff. So talk to me a little bit about the tech, not just between the version 1 and the version 2, but version 2 versus the competition in terms of the motor tech.
I mean, that's one of the biggest advancements in lenses over the past decade or so is focusing motors, because as we have mirrorless now, we have the need to be able to shoot video and stills faster. But it's not just about speed, it's about being precise and being smooth, right? Because you don't want just something to be as fast as possible. That's what digital SLRs did. They just moved as fast as possible, but they'd be jerky, they wouldn't be smooth. So we introduced something called a linear motor a while ago. And a linear motor is a magnet-driven motor, where it just moves this magnet, and it's silent, and it's fast, and it's smooth, and it's precise, and it can keep up to the fastest things that we need to do today. This lens has 2 XD linear motors, and XD just means extreme dynamic. There's lots of funny names. That just means they're bigger, they're more powerful, but they're still silent, they're still smooth. Now when it comes to like the original 85, to bring that one up first, it's an SSM motor. It uses 2 rings that like come apart, move, come apart, and they're slower, they're not as accurate. It's the same technology that digital SLR lenses.
Yeah, I mean, it was great for its time, because all of the high-end glass at that time from any company you could think of were using that as their technology, but we've progressed beyond that.
Because lenses back then, cameras didn't shoot very fast. Right. Like 10 frames a second, you were like, I'm good. Like 10 frames a second, money, we're good. But and people weren't, they were doing manual focus video, so like a lot has changed. But there's also other types of focusing lenses out there, even for mirrorless, like stepping motors, and stepping motors are similar to linear motors. They're just the older version of it, where instead of being completely smooth and be able to move thousands of times per second, it's just a step. It's exactly what it sounds like. So it's not designed for video, even though it can be designed to be smaller and lighter than the SSM motors. It's still not a linear XD motor because it's not smooth, it's not precise, and it steps. Like, so it's not ideal for video making. It's not ideal for fast action. You can't shoot very fast. So that's why we use XD linear, because we're always, thinking ahead, just like GMASTER was. We're always thinking of what we're going to be doing in the future, not just for right now, but what this lens needs to be doing in 4, 5, 6 years.
Exactly. There was a lot of chatter as well with this lens, and I got the opportunity to use it to shoot stills, which were unbelievable. But obviously, a lot of the newer lenses, they have to be good at video.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously, focus breathing has been something that it has been tested thoroughly. It's like the first
Everyone
thing.
does the first thing.
Yeah.
First thing. They're like,
take it out of the box. Let's see what the focus breathing
Yeah.
is. And it has to perform, right? But what I've noticed specifically with this lens when I took it out of the box, we have focus breathing compensation in some of the newer camera bodies, and obviously that performs really well. What I think is interesting was that I have focus breathing compensation turned off, and I put the lens on, and there's still barely any focus breathing.
We have to say minimal focus breathing because mathematically there's a little bit of focus breathing, but there's essentially...
There's a lawyer with a gun off camera that,
Yeah, the Sony extension. So it's almost no focus breathing whatsoever. You can pick it up, look at it, see some results that are on the web, but
absolutely,
it's incredible. And to see lenses that can do this now, I mean, that used to be reserved just 6-7 years ago. Lenses that couldn't breathe design that were designated to $30,000 cinema lenses that were manual focus. So now you get that autofocus we talked about, and you get no focus breathing. That's why we're talking about this lens, not just on the 7R5, but like even our premiere video for this lens is on like a Barana, because you can do high-end productions with autofocus. I know that sounds faux pas that, you know, cinematography and film can be shot with autofocus, but try it. You should try it because it works, and it works really well. And you can do focus breathing, and it's a beautiful thing. So.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that I was happy to see. That not only is this lens catering to the portrait crowd, the wedding photographers that are out there, portrait photographers like myself, but also for the video crowd, that they're getting a lens that performs on some of the newer camera bodies with all of the cool video features that are out there. So I'm kind of I'm going to play kind of devil's advocate here for a minute, because I'm sure I'm going to look at the chat here momentarily, but I'm sure someone's going to ask, why not f1.2?
Yeah.
And I know when I saw it, I was happy as can be, because I love the original 85-1.4, and to see it updated with all of the new kind of modern GMASTER updates, for me, I was like, here's my money.
Yeah.
But I know that there's still people out there who have asked, like, well, it's going to be f1.2.
Of course.
You know, talk about that a little bit. Why not f1.2?
It's a natural question. I had the same question, right? Before I knew it, I was always wondering if it's going to be a 1.2 or 1.4, because as we know, the competitors make 1.2s. They don't make 1.4s. But we survey tons of professional photographers. You're always talking to professional photographers. At Condo, we talk to people. Online, we talk to people. All the time, we're talking to thousands and thousands of creators. And from the consensus that we get is that people would rather have a perfect 1.4. Right. Because when you go to 1.2, they tend to be, well, not tend to be, they are double the price, double the weight. They don't focus the way that you need them to be, so they're not designed for video. So now you have something that's twice the size, twice the weight, twice the price, and they aren't designed for video. They don't autofocus the way that this can do. So we made the decision to make the ultimate 1.4 as opposed to trying to go into 1.2. And the bigger statement is that now we have an entire lineup, like you said, of 1.4s.
Right.
So you can throw that 24, 35, 50, and 85 into your bag, and you have something for every single need, whether it's for video or for stills, and that 1.4 lineup is really important, where, again, we have 55 full-frame lenses, right? So we have far and away the largest lineup. So we can have 1.4, and we can also have the 1.8s, and we can also make room for, like, you know, other lenses in the future.
Sure.
But I think the 1.4 is really that perfect sweet spot for a lot of creation that people are doing. So instead of trying to make those compromises for 1.2, make that perfect 1.4, and then we'll go and think about something else.
I mean, we kind of saw it with the 50 millimeter.
Yep.
You know, we have an f1.2, we have an f1.4, and when you kind of put them up against each other, you know, it's actually kind of surprising to see, like, you don't really notice that big of a difference between f1.2 and f1.4. For some people who are purists, you know, this is what they want.
When you look at, and not to tout this lens as horn, but I have to because it's amazing.
Yeah.
When you look at the bokeh on this lens at 1.4, I'll be honest, when you compare it to 1.2 from the other lenses, it looks almost softer because of just how it regulates and how it makes that background defocus, how it just falls off. It makes it really smooth. Where those other lenses, they have, like, I like to call sharp bokeh, where you can see the definition around, you know, highlights and things like that, where this just simply just falls off. It's really beautiful, where I kind of prefer the 1.4 even over a 1.2, and I get all the advantages of this 1.4.
I mean, I'm going to do you even one better. I had the opportunity to shoot with this thing. I was outside, golden hour. I'll see if I can post these photos a little bit later, but you know, backlit situations sometimes with lenses could be a little bit tricky. Not in terms of getting them sharp and in focus, but certain things ruining the photos. So I've had other lenses that I've used where I've shot backlit, and if you're taking a portrait of a person, you get terrible chromatic aberration, which for somebody who's not like a photography purist, you might see it in your photo and not even think about it. But it's basically like a purple outline over, you know, like the hair or clothing or whatever it might be. I was shocked when I shot this thing backlit, took a portrait. The bokeh was unbelievable.
Not this thing. Not
the
this
85
yeah.
was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like backlit, no chromatic aberration to be seen anywhere.
Because that ruins it. Like, I know a lot of software can get rid of chromatic aberration.
No,
There's some
I've had
chromatic
some where
aberration.
you
can't get rid of it, and it.
I mean, there was some. I'm specifically thinking of a photograph right now in my head that I took where it was stunning. I mean, it was a beautiful photo. And as I started to retouch and do my editing and my coloring, I'm like, man, something is off with this photograph. and I zoom in, I pixel peep, and then I see this horrible purple fringing in the photo. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, Lightroom could correct for that. Let me go to purple fringing and get rid of it, and it's still there. And then so I got to do a second pass and a third pass. And finally, it was like, you could see that there was something done to this photograph to try to cover something up. Here it is, straight out of camera, raw shot, beautiful.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that we don't talk about enough, because the original, even our original 85, to your point, like with certain situations, with like reflections in the background for really reflective objects, you'd get some purple fringing. Those were a little bit easier to get rid of because it was not the bokeh. But this one completely eliminated.
And the coating on this is different as well.
This is a nano AR2 coating.
Right.
So it does just a really good job. That and the new lens just system that we have.
Right.
And the formula that we have.
I've actually noticed that with the new the Nano AR2 coating. Obviously, the newer GMASTER glass all has that. And again, in those like tricky lighting situations, it's very cool to see that there's no flaring, like there's no ghosting, there's no chromatic aberration, there's nothing that would ruin a well-taken photograph. Like there's nothing there. There's like no limitations. Everything looks awesome. Let me jump to questions here. So let's talk about the focus hold buttons, because that is one of the things. The original GMASTER had one. First, I have a video on Alpha Universe about focus hold buttons, so if you want to see that video, watch it afterwards. But for the Reader's Digest version, what is a focus hold button? And I know, oh my gosh, I'm totally dating myself. What is the focus hold button? Number one. And number two, why is there two? What is the advantage of having two focus hold buttons? And could they both be? Let's just answer that, and then we'll jump on that. I know the answer, but
so the focus hold buttons are nice because they can be focus hold buttons, or you can customize them to do really anything you want. You can toggle between like your subject that you want to do autofocus on. And the reason why there's two is because sometimes we shoot horizontal and sometimes we shoot vertical. That's why there's two.
Actually, let me pick this up. It's so beautiful. So yeah, there's going to be times where you have this thing customized and you might be shooting horizontal, so it's easy, it's right there on your thumb. But if you're shooting vertical shots, you still have access to that button, which is pretty awesome. The original 85 GM just had the one, so if you shot this way, I mean, I guess you could still kind of have your finger here, but, or I guess have your hand like this. By the way, in the chat, let me know, how do you hold your hand, or how do you hold your vertical shots? Do you do it this way, or do you do it this way?
Or do you have a grip?
Or do you have a grip, which makes that even easier? So focus hold buttons.
Did you notice the new thing that's on here too, that no prime lens has had yet?
What's that? Oh,
yeah. So the aperture ring now, so the aperture ring is something that we can turn the click on and off. I'll see it's already on. So you can turn the click on and off. So that way you can hear the click, or you can hear fully silent. That way for video, for stills. But I like to control my aperture from the camera.
Right.
Maybe I'm just more old school. I too know what leader that is.
Yeah, you have pretty gray hair,
so but you can lock the iris, because sometimes I would bump into the iris and I would move it. So now I can lock the iris. That way it won't move, and I can just control from the camera. Little things like that make big differences for people. Because all of a sudden I'll be looking at my shots, I'm like, that doesn't look like 1.4, and I'm scrolling through, I'm like, it's because it's 3.5.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I don't run into that too often, but I have heard people say like, oh man, sometimes, you know, you're the guy in the commercials, the made for TV, like, oh my gosh, I'm bumbling. No, I'm just playing. But no, but it does happen though, and I'm sure that happens for a lot of people, and being able to lock it is awesome. Let's see what other questions we have. So one of the other things, so, and you mentioned this during the launch, talking about the XA elements. And, you know, I feel like this is one of those things where oftentimes consumers are looking at a lens and they're just looking at the number. They'll see it's, okay, well, here's an 85, here's an 85, this one costs X, this one costs X, and usually whatever's, yeah, it's the same thing, right? But the reality is that the proof is in the pudding, right? There's always a different, there's something that separates it. And one of the things that separates this lens from a lot of other lenses on the market is that extreme aspherical element. Super nerdy. But you got glasses on, I don't, so I'm going to let you explain. What is an XA? I know. What is an XA element, and why is that such a big deal?
So one of the things that to talk about the origins of GMASTER a little bit, was we created a whole new manufacturing plant to be able to create a new way of molding lenses. So an XA element is our new molded lens. So it's got down to 1/100th of a micron surface precision, which sounds very nerdy, but it means it's a big deal because nothing else in the industry comes anywhere close to that. And because the surface is so precise, it gives us the ability to have that beautiful background focus, that beautiful bokeh. It gives the ability to have sharpness and bokeh. It does so much for us. On top of that, it also gives the ability to plan lenses in software before you can produce them, but that's a whole nother story. So the XA element is really kind of that secret sauce to the lens, I guess, that gives us that gorgeous bokeh that's perfectly round, no onion ring, really smooth, you don't have any edges under out of focus elements. And that's what makes GMASTER special.
Right.
And that's what makes this lens so special, because we have 2 of those XA elements, and we also have 2 ED elements, and it's just what makes this lens like really special. And when you look at the images that this lens produces, it does make this lens special. And there's a clear difference between this lens and other 85s that are out there. So
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.